Donald Trump's rhetoric didn't even hit me hard until last week. I had my absolute best childhood friend, since I was 6 years old. She lived across the street. I saw her mother as a mother, and they're white Christians, and her mom on Facebook posted this super hateful post about Muslims. But I saw this post and I just broke down in tears. It was so hard for me to see. And I wrote her this long letter, like, you know us. Like, we're my mom, like, you guys know each other. I just went to your wedding last year. Like, we're the Muslim family that you know, and you know we're not like that.
Show of hands. How many of you were born in the United States? Everybody. In a recent poll done by the Public Religion Research Institute, 56% of the Americans they talked to said that the values of Islam are at odds with American values. How does that strike you?
I mean, I think it's absolutely absurd for anybody to say that anyway, because we were raised in a way where we believe that you were supposed to follow the law and the values of the land that you live in, and we were born and raised here.
What do you think people misunderstand about the values of Islam?
I think they believe too much that the religion places an emphasis on violence.
Samia?
It's the person that's violent, not the religion.
RJ?
And when you nitpick a certain religion or you try and find out certain verses from any sort of text, you're going to find the violent verses. The Quran was written in Arabic, which is a deeply metaphorical language where one word has hundreds of meanings. So if you want to define it in a violent sense, you're going to be able to define it in a violent sense. The same way if you want to define it in a peaceful sense, which 1.5 billion people do, you're going to be able to do so.
But there are no verses in the Quran that allow killing of innocent people under any circumstances.
Terrorism, in your view, is outlawed by the Quran.
It's outlawed. It's the last thing
Completely.
any Muslim should be doing.
When you hear of an attack like the one in Paris, like the one in San Bernardino, and you have to get up and go to work or go to school the next day, what's going through your mind?
Fear.
Samia, what are you afraid of?
I remember after the attacks had happened, I was terrified because I knew that we would get the backlash for what had happened to all those innocent people.
Have any of you been confronted by somebody on the street? Anybody have words with you?
Yeah. It was the Monday after the Paris attacks had happened, and I went to school. I was walking, and a man that was leaning against a parking meter, I was walking past him, and he stuck out his leg, and he tripped me right in front of, everybody, and I fell onto the floor, and then he threw down his cigarette, and he started screaming in my ear, like on the right side. He was just like, go back to where you came from. And
He didn't mean Long Island.
No, that's what I thought he meant, that's where I'm from. And I've never felt hate like that before, so it was the first time for me. I remember that morning my mother came into my room and she was telling me, just wear a hat, don't go in with your full hijab because you never know what can happen in the world. And I remember looking at my mom and saying, this was my choice. I belong here. This is my country as much as it is anybody else's.
There are safety manuals popping up now online, and I see your heads nodding. You know what I'm talking about, that talk about Islamic women in public and steps that they should take for their own safety.
My own sister actually, had our entire family get together and be like, guys, should we sign up for a self-defense course? And especially after what happened to me, you never know.
Is it necessary?
Absolutely. Oh, absolutely. The police chief of the Rutgers Police, Kenneth Kopp, he approached the MSA at the university and said, look, you should let especially the women of your organization know if you need an escort. Rutgers offers free escorts. Look, just call. It's not a big deal. Don't walk out around late at night with both earphones in. Keep an eye on your surroundings, and et cetera, et cetera.
This was the campus police talking to the Muslim Students Association.
Yes. He approached the Muslim Students Association after the Paris attacks.
Lieutenant, when you decided to join the Army, was there a lot of conversation in the family about that?
My friends, my Muslim friends, non-Muslim friends, my brother, just everyone that wasn't in the military was like, are you going to go and kill your own people? This is crazy. What are you doing? That's when I did my own research and I found out there's plenty of Muslims serving in the military. There's religious tolerance, there's respect.
I wonder how it strikes your ear when you hear ISIS in particular claiming that it's doing everything that it's doing in the name of all Muslims.
They don't represent Muslim. There's nothing Islamic about ISIS. Islam It comes from the root word salam, sin, lam, mim, the 3 Arabic letters. That literally translates to peace. ISIS goes against the very tenets of it.
ISIS has a very clear agenda. They've said it. They want to eliminate any gray zone of Muslims being tolerated in the West. So then we have hateful acts that are carried out and politicians or presidential candidates coming out and perpetuating this hateful rhetoric and giving into what ISIS wants.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't tell you, after Donald Trump's proposed ban on Muslims coming into the country, how many articles were finally written about how he is playing into the hands of ISIS.
Samia, what did you think the first moment that you heard of Donald Trump's proposal to ban all Muslims from entering the United States?
I'm not really scared of him. What I'm scared of is the millions of people that follow him, that believe in his ideology of banning Muslims.
RJ, what did you think when you heard the Trump proposal?
I was in disbelief. I mean, I couldn't believe that the leading contender for the Republican Party is able to say something like this and gain even more support. I don't like to identify myself as a Muslim American. I'm an American who is Muslim. People don't identify themselves as Christian Americans or Jewish Americans. They're Americans, the same way that I'm a second-generation American. So why is there this divide that Donald Trump wants to create, and those people that support him want to create, when I'm just as American as them?
And the reality is, there's Facebook posts, there's going to be hate, there's going to be prejudice, but how are the Muslims that have the knowledge, what are they doing?
The president said in his address the other night, it's the responsibility of Muslims around the world to root out misguided ideas that lead to radicalization. So what are you doing about it?
We need to get rid of the credibility.
I don't really think that the problem necessarily is that Muslims aren't doing anything, because that's absolutely not true. When there is a shooter who shoots up a movie theater and he happens to be white, does the president go on TV and say, look, white people, you have to, speak up against, you have to root out the crazy people in your communities who are going to go and shoot up schools? That doesn't happen.
What do you think of how the media covers terrorism?
Poorly.
Very poorly.
Before any investigation goes on after a shooting or any kind of attack, if the name sounds Muslim, it's a suspected terrorist attack. Every single time. And so every Muslim in America is on the edge of their seats like, what's the name? What's the name? Has the name been released? Because, not because of the attack being carried out and how horrendous it was, but because everybody's scared of the backlash.
There's been more terror attacks committed by non-Muslims in America than there have been by Muslims in 2015.
But because Islam is getting this flack on mainstream media, it forces people in the community who care enough to understand what's going on to be like, well, let me look into it. Let me actually talk to American Muslims. So you see how similar we all are, and then when you do that, everybody kind of comes together.
Communication is the antidote to fear.
Oh, 100%.
As Muslims, we can't wait for someone to come ask us. We have to communicate, we have to go out there and tell them and educate them. I feel like the generation before us probably wouldn't have had that courage, because they didn't have to deal with what we're going through with Islam being on the spotlight.
You've grown up with it.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
We've
It's the
only
only
known.
world we've known.
It's exactly.
Yeah, we grew up in a post 9/11 world. It's the only thing we know. We only know about Islam being viewed as hate, whereas we grew up in a household where Islam is love, it's peace, it's helping one another, compassion.